Hi there. I'm going to be talking about autistic savants. And my question is it in fact a defect that turns a person into a genius? Were the greatest minds of the past, like Einstein, Bach, and Mozart, actually autistic? We all see and perceive the world differently, or in other words, you see what your own brain unconsciously filters through streams of incoming signals. Cre- Creativity has been linked to the function of neuronal networks of the frontal lobe regions of the brain, and in particular, the prefrontal cortex. Higher levels of dopamine have been linked to higher levels of creativity. This can be easily explained due to the fact that the prefrontal cortex has access to our long-term memory. This then causes those stagnant ideas to be produced during excitation, causing ideas to arise that had never arisen before. Michael Fitzgerald, a professor at Oxford, researched biographies from creative minds such as Einstein, finding that Newton, Mozart, Beethoven, Sigmund Freud, Alfred Hitchcock, and Andy Warhol all had symptoms of Asperger's syndrome, which is a milder version of autism. Fitzgerald believes that there is an imbalance between the left and the right hemispheres. Many people with suspected Asperger's are very rigid, socially inept, systematic, but very brilliant and almost like detail-oriented computers, being able to process lots of information at once, very quickly. It is interesting that you have to disable part of the brain to pull out savant-like skills. It is almost that the one side of the brain is outweighing the other, or perhaps the equilibrium produces a sort of cancellation effect when both are equally active. Take the example of drawing a cat, for instance. The mathematical, logical sides of our brain are giving us the signal to draw the creature based on memories we have of what that creature looks like, how long the legs should be in proportion to the body, the tail, etc. While the creative side, so to speak, is telling us to make colors like brown or black, add hair to the body, add details in the iris of the eye, or perhaps even draw what the dog conceptually represents in our imaginations. To some, a dog could represent many other objects in the world, could resemble even a word or a sound. These differentiations of how people see things are played out in our psyche. This is how we become different from one another and arrive at the conclusion that no one is exactly the same. Even in cases with twins, there will always be some sort of differentiation, however slight or microscopic. My goal with this conclusion, or with this video, was not to give a detailed analysis of the description of autism, but more of the ways to understand and appreciate the complexity and diversity of the human mind, and the potential that we have to uncover something more. Let's see here. We all have the potential to be genius or have savant capabilities. It is merely a matter of what parts of the brain are active and how many neurons and neural networks are present and firing in specific regions. Autism is not the skills of those who have something more, but those who have something less. Perhaps this relates to evolution. Our brains are wired to perform a multitude of tasks, in which we can both be highly social creatures and also logical and mathematical. This explains the influence of testosterone that was mentioned by my group member Paula, inferring that these neural networks in the areas have to do with the logical and mathematical skills, and that have more neural connections, perhaps even more neurons in particular regions, and lack the multitude of networks in other areas of the brain pertaining to social skills and emotional normativity. Scientists have found that autistic individuals have less neural activity in the amygdala and hippocampus. These neural structures contain nerve cells that are immature and have not migrated to their proper locations in the brain during development. They are therefore incapable of functioning 100% correctly, causing the unresponsive, emotionless expressions often associated with autism in savants as well. In terms of savant syndrome, these findings are very significant. The ability of savants to tend to be related to the 5 primary senses: visual, auditory, olfactory, touch, and taste. It can be hypothesized that these senses are developed in the right cerebral hemisphere at the expense of the left cerebral hemisphere. In a sense, the obsession with a certain sense is manifested in the loss of skills in the left brain, where these talents become a form of self-expression. The pattern of brain lateralization in autism shows a dependence on the right brain, where the special skills are almost always non-symbolic and directly perceived. As opposed to the left brain skills, which include language and are sequential and logical, recent studies have shown that most likely cause of savant syndrome is damage to the left CNS and higher memory structures, such as the right brain and lower habit memory structures. If the CNS damage is prenatal, then there is often an associated release of testosterone, which is neurotoxic, particularly to the left brain, and that left brain takes longer to develop. The finding supports the raised likelihood of males suffering savant syndrome more than females do. If the speed of reconciliation is the largest issue, then it follows that every human, the possibilities of savant abilities are present. It has been suggested that babies and all humans possess the abilities to be savants, which can be seen in the rapid language acquisition at that age, as well as the fact that they can remember absolute pitch and they have photographic memory up to a certain point. Corresponding image studies which show that newborns are neurologically limited to certain parts of the brain that eventually become unconscious support this idea as well. The theory is further supported by the fact that autistic children often lose their abilities once their social interactions improve or once they learn a language. It is also interesting to note, as our brain makes up for blind spots, the savant mind does not do so, or at least not in the same way. Where we may hear a 3-note chord, they can identify a 6-note chord. Though a slightly disturbing notion that the brain acts in ways that we cannot control or even be truly aware of, there is comfort in knowing that the brain strongly attempts to compensate for its weaknesses, and that we have more unrealized talent and ability than we are even aware of. So, thank you.